Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because we are diving into something pretty much all of us are guilty of at some point. You know the drill, right? You stay up way too late, your alarm goes off way too early, and you just kind of push through the day on sheer willpower. But today, we are unpacking the hidden biological cost of doing that. We're going to look at the invisible toll that sacrificing sleep for productivity actually takes on your brain and your body. All right, let's get right into it and see what the science has to say. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning and you've only scraped together a measly 4 hours of sleep. You drag yourself out of bed, maybe splash some cold water on your face, and pour a massive cup of coffee. Or, maybe 3. And at first, you actually feel kind of fine. You tell yourself, hey, I'm good, I can handle this. I'll just catch up on the weekend. It's this false sense of confidence that millions of students, professionals, and parents rely on every single day. But what is really happening under the hood?
To really get a grip on this, we're going to track exactly what happens to your body as the day goes on. We've mapped out a chronological timeline of a single sleep-deprived day, starting with that 6 a.m. wake-up, then your 10 a.m. morning meetings, hitting the 12 p.m. lunch break, pushing through that awful 3 p.m. afternoon slump, and finally getting to your 8 p.m. evening wind-down. Going hour by hour is going to show us exactly how this biological breakdown actually unfolds.
So, here's our exact agenda for today. We'll kick things off with the morning illusion, then move right into the 10 a.m. emotional hijack, check out the lunchtime hunger trap, navigate the 3 p.m. cognitive crash, decode the evening false energy, and finally, we'll completely bust the weekend sleep myth.
All right, phase 1, the morning illusion, waking up at 6 a.m.
So, you're brushing your teeth, commuting to work. Everything seems totally normal, but invisible damage is already happening in your brain before you even walk out your front door. See, normally, while you sleep, your brain kicks off this absolutely vital, deep cleaning process called the glymphatic system. Basically, as your brain works and processes information all day, it builds up metabolic waste. The glymphatic system is there to literally wash away those toxic waste proteins.
Think of it like a nighttime cleaning crew in a huge shopping mall. After everyone leaves, the crew comes in, mops the floors, takes out the trash, and gets the place sparkling for the next day. But when you only get 4 hours of sleep, it's literally like that cleaning crew clocking out halfway through their shift. The trash is still sitting in the bins, the floors are still sticky, some of that toxic waste is left behind in your brain. And sure, one bad night isn't the end of the world. But if you do this all the time, scientists strongly link this continuous buildup of waste to a much higher risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's later in life.
Moving on to phase 2, the 10 a.m. emotional hijack. Your brain officially enters survival mode.
Okay, so now you're at work or in class. You're sitting in a meeting, nodding along, probably thinking you're totally engaged. But beneath that calm exterior, there is a massive power struggle happening inside your head. On one side, you have the prefrontal cortex. That's the logical, rational part of your brain that handles complex decisions, kind of like a wise, level-headed office manager. On the other side is the amygdala, which is basically your brain's emotional alarm system. Normally, the wise manager keeps that alarm system totally in check. But on 4 hours of sleep, your prefrontal cortex is completely out of gas. The manager has essentially left the building, and the highly reactive, emotional employee, the amygdala, is now running the show.
And here is the absolute kicker, 60%. Researchers found that when you're sleep-deprived, your emotional reactivity to negative situations spikes by up to 60%. This is exactly why tiny little hiccups suddenly feel like massive disasters. Someone cuts you off in traffic, instant rage. A coworker sends a slightly brief email, you immediately assume they're furious with you. The reality of the situation hasn't changed at all. Your brain has. You have literally been emotionally hijacked.
Which brings us to phase 3. The lunchtime hunger trap. Bring on the junk food. So it hits 12 p.m. You sit down for lunch, and out of nowhere, you're craving the heaviest, unhealthiest food imaginable. Pizza, burgers, massive sugary treats. Now, you might feel a little guilty, but honestly, it's not a lack of willpower. Your lack of sleep has completely scrambled your hormones. We're talking specifically about ghrelin, the hormone that makes you hungry, and leptin, the hormone that tells your brain you're full. Think of your appetite like a car. Ghrelin is the gas pedal, and leptin is the brakes. When you restrict your sleep to 4 hours, your body pumps out a ton of ghrelin. It's just slamming that hunger accelerator straight to the floor. And at the exact same time, it cuts way back on leptin, so your fullness brakes basically stop working entirely. You are physiologically driven to eat hundreds of extra calories without even realizing it. Over time, that makes unwanted weight gain almost a guarantee.
Now we hit phase 4, the 3 p.m. cognitive crash. Say goodbye to your reaction time. It's mid-afternoon, you're probably grabbing yet another coffee just to survive the slump. But the data here is actually kind of terrifying. There's this famous scientific study showing that people who restrict their sleep to just 4 to 6 hours for a few nights in a row perform almost as terribly on attention and reaction tests as someone who has been awake for a full 24 hours straight. To put that into perspective, that level of impairment means your attention capacity is equivalent to someone who is legally drunk. No joke. You might feel totally fine driving a car home, crossing a busy street, or operating heavy machinery, but your reaction time has completely tanked. This huge disconnect between how awake you think you feel and how impaired you actually are is exactly why drowsy driving is such a massive leading cause of fatal accidents on the road.
Next up, phase 5, the evening false energy, also known as the stress response.
Okay, so you somehow survive the commute, and it's 8 p.m. You have been completely exhausted all day long. But suddenly, boom, you catch a second wind. You might think, hey, my body adapted. But what you're actually experiencing is a massive surge of cortisol. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. Because you are so incredibly sleep-deprived, your body literally assumes you must be facing some kind of prolonged, life-threatening emergency. So it pulls the biological fire alarm and floods your system with cortisol to force you to stay awake. Now, pulling that fire alarm is an amazing evolutionary trick if you actually need to survive a sudden crisis for one day. But pulling it every single day, that is incredibly toxic.
And this sets up a really scary contrast. In the short term, you get this illusion of a second energy burst. You feel like you've adapted to less sleep. But in the long term, this constant, quiet state of stress is driving up your blood pressure, completely weakening your immune system, and seriously raising your risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. And the most dangerous part is that you don't feel your blood pressure rising. You don't feel your immune system failing. The damage just quietly compounds over time, until one day, it becomes impossible to ignore. Finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Phase 6, the weekend sleep myth. Can you actually catch up? This right here is the biggest lie we tell ourselves to justify burning the candle at both ends all week long. We think, I'll just sleep 12 hours on Sunday and wipe the slate clean. Look, sleeping 12 hours on a Sunday is an emergency repair. Yeah, it might make you feel a little less groggy in that exact moment, but the science is absolutely crystal clear here. It does not erase the metabolic and neurological damage you did Monday through Friday. Your body desperately needs regular maintenance, that consistent 7 to 9 hours every single night. Trying to catch up on the weekend is basically like starving yourself all week and then trying to eat an entire week's worth of meals on Sunday. You're going to feel really full, but your body still suffered through all that deprivation first. So, what's the actual biological reality here? Well, experts universally agree that 7 to 9 hours of sleep is non-negotiable for the vast majority of adults. Now, are there people who can genuinely thrive on just 4 hours? Sure, but it requires a documented, incredibly rare genetic mutation. So, unless you are literally a genetic mutant, 4 hours is just not enough. The harsh truth is that every single hour of sleep you lose to stay up late, whether you're working, gaming, or just scrolling on your phone, is an hour of health that you are borrowing directly from your future. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Sleep isn't wasted time. It's one of the most important investments your brain will ever make. When you close your eyes at night, your body isn't just shutting down. It is working overtime. It is actively fighting to repair itself, washing toxic waste out of your brain and rebalancing your hormones. So I want to leave you with this to think about. The next time you're tempted to steal a few hours of sleep just to watch one more episode or answer one more email, do you truly want your body to eventually collect on that biological debt? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and seriously, do yourself a huge favor and make that investment in your sleep tonight.